While Donald Trump is working on a peace plan in the Middle East, there's another outbreak of aggression in Russia. Today, Russia's Deputy Security Council Chairman Dmitry Medvedev, known for his drinking, has made another threat, this time aimed at Donald Trump. He stated that supplying Ukraine with American Tomahawk cruise missiles would have serious consequences for the United States itself and personally for Donald Trump. And as Medvedev says, quote, the supply of these missiles could end badly for everyone and above all for Donald Trump himself. The more radical wing of the Russians has already backed these threats. But on the other hand, Peskov, the press secretary of Russian President Vladimir Putin, quickly ran out to the journalists and said, stop, let's calm down. And he basically publicly asked Donald Trump for an urgent phone conversation with Putin because he said there are all the possibilities to urgently organize negotiations. Why? Because Trump said the day before that he wants to talk to Putin before sending Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. And if Putin is not ready to end the war, then these missiles will fly onto the heads of Russians. And at the same time, there are reports about one of the Russian submarines that was recently spotted near France. And it turned out that there was an accident with a fuel leak on the Russian submarine. And this submarine surfaced not to spy on NATO troops, but because it was malfunctioning. And besides, today Donald Trump made a loud statement in which he said that Steve Witkoff, his special envoy, went to see Putin without having any idea who Putin was. What is Russia? Where is Ukraine? He said he didn't know politics, so I was surprised what they discussed for 5 hours. He said, I thought he would talk to him for 15 minutes and that would be it. So let's go over all these points. Threats from Russians against Trump, Trump's loud statements that he is still delivering Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. And now, in the Kremlin, they're squirming in their chairs trying to somehow get some negotiations with Trump. My name is Alexei Pechi. Today is October 13th. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like and write any comment you want. And friends, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation. Check the video description for links and details to support Alexei Pechi's channel. Pick any format that's convenient. I appreciate any support you give. So, the transfer of American Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine will have serious consequences for the United States itself, led by President Donald Trump. This was stated today by the Deputy Chairman of the Security Council of Russia and the Chief Alcoholic of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev. He stated that the supply of these missiles could end badly for everyone and above all for Trump himself. Medvedev then hinted that in response Russia could use nuclear weapons, specifically against Americans and personally against Donald Trump. According to Medvedev, it's impossible to distinguish nuclear tomahawks from conventional ones in flight. And if such missiles are launched, it won't be Ukraine doing it, but the United States. And then I quote Medvedev, "Read Trump, how should Russia respond?" Exactly. Next. Medvedev expressed hope that this is just another empty threat, like sending nuclear submarines closer to Russia. Let me remind you about this episode. This is when Medvedev threatened Trump with nuclear weapons, and Trump responded by saying he sent 2 nuclear submarines closer to Russia's shores, to cool down Medvedev's head a little. Later, Trump called Medvedev a stupid person. He said, Putin has this stupid guy who threatens me with something, he'd better calm down. Well, apparently Medvedev took it to heart again, and off he went, Medvedev. Well, here we are again. He says that if a Tomahawk flies toward Russia, it's hard to tell whether it's a nuclear missile or not. And if this missile is flying, it means that Trump himself pressed the button and it's headed toward Russia. But here, it's funny because today Volodin, not today, but the day before at the Valdai summit, said that according to their data, according to Russian data, Tomahawks with a nuclear component haven't been used in America for 10 years. Supposedly there haven't been nuclear Tomahawks for 10 years now. Medvedev says it's hard to tell the difference. They're simply confused. And so Medvedev's post was responded to in the Kremlin, and even Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov agreed, saying, quote, "Handling these complex missiles will inevitably require American specialists." That's obvious. Any competent expert knows this and is aware. There's a report. At the same time, Peskov refused to predict Russia's possible reaction regarding the Tomahawks. He's talking about the Tomahawks. We've discussed this so much that repeating it seems pointless. Do you know why? There's nothing to repeat or threaten with. On the topic of Tomahawks, Medvedev can write some posts about nuclear submarines, about a nuclear strike, personally against Donald Trump, but he's just a jester. Pay attention to his words, there's no point. You can pay attention to what Putin says, for example. Let me remind you, Putin initially said, "No, what are you talking about? If Trump really delivers Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, it will disrupt the positive dynamics of relations between Russia and the United States." And then Putin said that it wouldn't affect the battlefield at all. He said, so what? Some old Tomahawks. They'll give them to Ukraine. They'll hit somewhere. Nothing terrible will happen. In the end, Putin ended up saying that when he was asked how Russia would respond to the appearance of Tomahawk missiles in Ukraine, he said, "We will strengthen our air defense. We will strengthen Russia's air defense." He means we'll defend ourselves. What else can we do, or how else can we respond? Well, not like Medvedev says. He doesn't have the guts for that. That's it. Yeah. And I'll say it again. Yes, both Peskov, Medvedev, Putin and Lavrov, they all repeat the same thing, that Tomahawks can't be launched without the involvement of American military personnel. Tomahawks. Yes, that's right. What's next? Nothing. Let me remind you, on October 12th, Trump suggested giving Tomahawks to Ukrainians if Putin won't start peace talks. And here's a quote from Trump. Maybe I'll say to Putin, listen, if this war isn't settled, I'll send them Tomahawks. I can send them. Tomahawk is an incredible weapon, very offensive. And honestly, Russia doesn't need that. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, had a phone conversation with his American counterpart on October 12, which was the second one in basically a day. They discussed possible Tomahawk deliveries and boosting Ukraine's air defense. But Zelensky did not say if any final decisions were made on these issues. But basically right now, everything points to the fact that Trump wants to talk to Putin first and warn him like, well, you're going to get yourself in trouble. That's it. And the most interesting thing is that after Trump said that he wants to kind of give Putin a warning, Peskov, that same Peskov who says it's reckless to throw around such phrases, practically rushed out to the journalists and started begging Trump on camera for negotiations so that Trump would talk to Putin. All options exist for quickly arranging a conversation between United States President Donald Trump and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, but without clear agreements. That's more or less Peskov's message today. But next I'll give you a quote. Trump mentioned the possibility, but there are no specific agreements for a phone call yet. The conversation will begin as soon as they appear. I repeat once again, there are all the possibilities for organizing such a phone conversation quite promptly. Well, in other words, Peskov is basically conveying the idea that, please, we can do it at any moment. Putin won't even sleep. We can promptly organize any communication from any place to any point. Please, let's talk. Let me emphasize once again, I want to stress, it's been several days now, pay attention to the rhetoric of the Russians. They were really frightened by Europe's unity. They tested it. Their determination and security measures with their drones and fighter jets, and they understand that, well, Europe is, yes, weak, slow, but ready to defend itself. They are shocked by Europe's unity. They expected that by terrorizing Eastern Europe, Western and Central Europe would refuse to get involved, saying they didn't want escalation with Moscow. That didn't work. No, Europe's still united, and that's why Putin is practically begging Trump now, please, let's talk. Notice how all Russian officials, including Putin, are saying in unison that there was some secret agreement in Anchorage, Alaska, between Trump and Putin to end the war. So let's stick to this line. Why is no one sticking to it? Why does it have to be explained to everyone that there was some kind of agreement? Please, let's talk. This has been happening for days and Trump is ignoring it. And now Trump reaches a point where he says, listen, okay, let's talk. But if the war ends or Ukraine gets Tomahawk missiles, which could then be launched at Russia. And finally, regarding Medvedev's nuclear threats, I want to share another interesting piece of news. The thing is, on October 9th, we received some news. NATO's naval command detected a Russian submarine Novorossiysk surfacing off the coast of France. The Submarine, which is capable of carrying nuclear weapons, surfaced on October 9th near the French region of Brittany. This was officially reported by NATO's Naval Command. Naturally, many people paid attention to this. People are saying, look, the Russians have already sent a submarine, a nuclear submarine, to France. This is yet another test of Europe's resolve, but it turned out to be much more trivial. The submarine was on combat duty in the Mediterranean Sea, but it encountered a fuel leak. Because the vessel couldn't enter Black Sea or Syrian ports, it went for repairs at a North Sea or Baltic Sea port. After detection off France, the submarine continued under North Atlantic Alliance naval control. In short, it turned out that the submarine Novorossiysk surfaced simply because of some problems. It just had a fuel leak. And finally, let me remind you that Novorossiysk is a Russian diesel-electric submarine. It is armed with Kaliber cruise missiles. The vessel was laid down in August 2010, launched in 2013, and in 2014. Since 2014, Novorossiysk has been part of the Black Sea Fleet, but it is not allowed into the Black Sea due to the Montreux Convention. So, that's the situation in general. I'll leave it at that. Probably share your opinion and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now.